All righty, folks. Welcome back. It is now 2:30 and time for our last presentation of the day. This next project, the Santa Barbara Islamic Center, is not only a place of worship, but of sanctuary and community. Designed by Ken Minow of Appleton Partners. Ken grew up in the Midwest and is from a family of carpenters and architects. Ken's grandfather crafted the main entrance doors to the Holy Hill Basilica in Wisconsin, and his family comes from ancestral carpenters and architects in Germany. Ken moved to Santa Barbara to go to college and apprenticed under an English master carpenter, building custom homes up on the Riviera while he was in college. And then he went and graduated from UC Berkeley after deciding to study architecture. Go Bears. Ken was sent to Malaysia by Barry Burkus to send architectural projects back to Santa Barbara and supplement the workload during the 90s recession. So this caused him to be able to work on a lot of projects throughout the United States and Asia. For the last 40 years, Ken has practices and offices in Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, and the Kuala Lumpur. Ken is also a member of the Central Coast Green Building Council. What most interests Ken is the architectural archaeology of the site. For the Santa Barbara Islamic Center, Ken says that community was the main driving force behind this project. It was a team effort, and to give a special shout out to his wife, Norma Helene. Thank you to the site sponsor for this project, Ashley & Vance Engineering. It's my pleasure to hand off to Ken Minow.
Hi, Cash. How are you?
Hey, Ken. Thanks.
Good. So today is a great day to take a look at the Islamic Center. I think we prepared a little video to kind of go over all of the items that we designed into the project. And so I thought we'd just get started with that and then be open to questions and answers after that. And Steve Aldana is here to assist also. And I do have the fly-through images available after and during the Q&A session.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ken Minow. I'm with Appleton Partners, and welcome to the AIA ArchitecTours of the Islamic Center for Santa Barbara. Thank you all for joining me. As you can see, there's the new center on the roundabout at Calle Real and Los Caneros. This site was purchased by the Islamic Society in 2001 and was designated as the future site for the center based on its location right off of the 101 freeway and Los Caneros in Goleta. This is the only center that's between Oxnard and San Luis Obispo, and it serves as a place for our Friday prayers, our weekly prayers, our daily prayers, as well as a place for visitors who are traveling up and down the coast to come and join us in prayer here also. As you can see, we're the only building on the corner of a 165-acre nature preserve, the Los Caneros Preserve. Initially, when we first addressed the city, there were many of our neighbors who were surprised that this was actually a commercial site that could be developed. And it was something that was designated in the 50s or in the early 40s in the general plan as commercial highway development, which is essentially in those days a gas station site. Or the newer planning that the newly formed city of Goleta has designated it as. So we actually couldn't submit to the city until 2006, and that's when we actually submitted our plans in 2007. The first center that we proposed was on the corner, just as you see today. And over time, working with the Design Review Board, working with the local council, the siting of the building moved 3 times during that process and eventually came back to the original location that we proposed. So the initial concept for the design was a Moorish style, kind of in the what would be more traditional in Santa Barbara. And it became known to us that the local residents here would prefer that it be in a style for Goleta. Of course, it's a community center, and as a community center, they're typically designed in the style of the local community rather than in a purely Islamic style like a national mosque would be done. And so we picked up on the architecture of our neighbor, which is the Stowe House, which is beyond the tree line there, and that's a wooden Victorian house. And it also has agricultural buildings associated with it. So we picked up on some of the architectural forms of the barn that's over in that area, the saddlebags on the side, as well as the board and bat siding, and then elements of the Islamic faith or the Islamic tradition with plaster walls and thick walls. On the second floor is our actual prayer hall, and Qiblat, which is where everyone stands and faces when they're praying, is in the northeasterly direction. So the building is slightly rotated on the north-south axis of the site. The lower floor, the doors that are there are for the children's classroom, and then adjacent to the children's classroom is the door for the imam's residence. Additionally, the imam has a door up that slight staircase where he can go and get to the main part of the prayer hall. An important feature of the Islamic Center was its siting on this natural preserve and using sustainable elements in order to make the building fit within the environment. As you can see right here, there's a small well here. That's actually where the gray water is collected from the building itself under that green cover. And that water from there is actually piped to each one of the trees underground. So it's water that we use to do our ablution, to get ready for prayer, and then it's actually watering our trees. The landscape is drought tolerant, and we tried to get as much landscaping as we could for our site. An important element that we added to the center was the use of date palms. They signify entry, and so we have 2 date palms that flank the entry drive, and also 1 date palm at the main intersection there, as well as all of the other native planting that is associated with our environment. Another objective was to save as much water as we could, and so the only area of the site that's actually impervious is the driveway that's the fire access driveway. All of the other parking spaces, except the handicap spaces that you see there, are impervious, and those are areas where all of the site water is collected underground in gravel areas, and then the water is let to slowly percolate into the soil from those gravel pits. So on the theme of it being a farm or rural building in Goleta, we adopted those forms and then adopted Islamic or Moorish elements that were added to it for the function of the prayer hall itself. The mirador on this northern end is where the imam stands during prayer, and it faces Qiblat on the northeast. The door below it actually enters into a library, and the library is a social space that's used for the local community as a place to come and have internet access, drink coffee, and study. You can see that we have EV charging stations, and those are used for anyone who comes to the center. On Friday prayers, they can plug their car in, and we're lucky enough that the local fire chief, who comes here every night, parks his car here and actually recharges his EV car here. And so we have him overlooking our site late at night as he comes, drops his car off, and then walks to the fire station, which is a couple blocks up the road. So this is the main entrance that most people use in order to gain access to the lower level, which has our multi-purpose hall, our library, and our kids' classroom, as well as the place where we take ablution, the restrooms. So on the easterly side, that is our main entrance for men and women to enter the Islamic Center and directly go up to the prayer hall on the second story. As you can see, the minaret of our elevator tower and our cupola based on the Elwood gas station out on Hollister, and then the moon and crescent star on the top, which is the clear story that allows ventilation of our prayer hall so that we're not dependent upon air conditioning. The plaster itself is a color coat plaster that was integrated color that we wanted to use in contrast with the green windows, which is a very traditional Islamic color. Again, here you can see the landscaping is very native and local. And if we look around the site, we actually had some site constraints where we had some willow trees that were invading our property that we had to mitigate and actually add some new willows off to the side there. We have willows on this side, and that was one of the reasons why we had to build the building away from the willow trees to mitigate being too close to them. Of course, you can see the natural habitat with the trees above. That's where the kite hawks have their nest. You can see some pine trees, and then we have a continuous canopy of oaks. And that area there actually has restoration oaks that are part of it for a place to mitigate oaks that you can't fit on your own site. They can plant in the Los Carneros Preserve. You can also see a date palm in the distance there, which is very traditional in the area, and a little path that leads off of the parking spaces here. So there's many bicycle riders and hikers that actually come and go through our property. One of the elements that the city wanted us, the design review board wanted us to keep, is an open nature and the ability for people to walk through our site and go out to the nature preserve. Here again, we're using local materials for the sandstone, and then we have DG pathways and bicycles stands. As you enter the center, this is our entry foyer. It leads out to our multi-purpose hall. And then this is our staircase that goes up to our prayer hall. We had a column that was built for us from the Moorish tradition, and it was our one standing column that we wanted to make sure was a nice feature to our entry sequence up to the prayer hall itself. Each one of these rooms can be converted and sit on its own so that we can have multi-functions happening throughout the space. So the library can be closed off from the center multi-purpose room, as well as the kids' classroom. So we can close this door, and we can have 3 functions going on at one time. The purpose of this area is to have interfaith functions where we can open the doors and invite our friends from other religious communities, and we can host dinners, we can have lectures, we can have community gatherings, as well as have small meetings for ourselves. This is the library here. College students like to come and stay here. This is where we actually have our board meeting here. The other use that we do for this prayer hall, or for the multi-purpose area, is if there's an event that overflows our main prayer hall, we can pray down on this level here also. key blot is facing that way. You can see that we have an integrated AV system and microphones, and we can actually have television video that would show the imam upstairs and have it downstairs here. So we can use these rooms as additional prayer hall spillover space. We have a small catering kitchen back here. Again, a monitor that we use for our presentations. We used simple details, cornice details. We took our registers and actually generated a Islamic pattern there, and we had custom light fixtures made by a local artisan here, Jeff Meister of IronCAD. In terms of the finishes, it was important to one of our members that we use marble, which is a very traditional material used in the Middle East for prayer halls. And then in the Moorish tradition, we used clay tiles from Granada, those type of Moorish, and so we mixed the two together. Again, in the spirit of being conservative or being sustainable, any time that we can use fans and natural ventilation and stay away from air conditioning, we've added those features to the design. That's our library wall. One of the things that I'd like to point out is when you build a community center, it's something that actually is a place of reverence for many generations. These are coral stone mosques that are actually in the Maldives. They were built in the 1300s, and they're still there today. Hopefully, this building will last as long as those. At this point, everyone is asked to remove their shoes before they go upstairs. We have shoe racks for that, which are inside the men's and ladies' restrooms. And before prayer, most people come to the mosque having taken their ablution, but those who haven't, we have a small ablution area here to clean yourself or cleanse yourself before you actually go up for prayers. One of my favorite elements that we were able to achieve here was the actual column itself. Early on, I had envisioned that would be made out of plaster. And we had some estimates, and we had a budget for the column. I think it was $5,000. And we had some plaster estimates done, and none of those fit within that budget. And then we reached out to a local artisan, actually in Montana, who does bronze casting. And we told him our budget, and he said, yeah, I can do that for you. And so he actually made a three-dimensional model of the Capitol, and then he cast this all in bronze, and then that's a steel column below, and then some steel rings there, and then he painted it all to match the bronze Capitol, and then he actually came here and installed it. And he's quite proud of it, and we're quite proud of it. And it really is a very beautiful feature of our main stair hall. In the spirit of economy, we tried to make use of all of the different spaces. We added these archways as part of the climb up the stairs and getting the most square footage on top, and then adding Moorish details into the design of the staircase itself. So welcome to the prayer hall for the Islamic Center. As you come to the top of the stair, there's two ways to enter the prayer hall. There's the men's entry here, and this is the men's prayer area. And then straight ahead is the prayer area for the women. There's books that the women use during prayer. In the back is actually a back stair where women can actually come up straight from their ablution area and come to the back without walking up the main stair. Again, up here, we've emphasized natural ventilation. We have a fan that keeps the prayer hall cool. We also have an exhaust fan up in the cupola that exhausts any hot air so that we can naturally ventilate this without using air conditioning. The mihrab and minbar on the far end is where the imam stands and prays and leads the prayer. You can see his prayer rug there. The carpet, you can see, actually has lines in it where the men and women are lying during prayers, shoulder to shoulder, and the lines are very important to keep the spacing correct. And so those help everyone line up during the actual prayer itself. Again, we use the light fixtures that were made locally and the symbolism of the minbar and mihrab. And then, of course, natural light, and then the natural beauty that we can see beyond of the Santa Barbara Mountains and the Los Caneros Nature Preserve. One of the elements that we ran across during the approval of the process is the white-tailed kite hawk actually nests nearby, and it's a very unique hawk in that the male and female actually transfer prey that they've caught from the male to the female in a ceremonial way. And some days you can actually see that occur right outside our windows. Early on in the design process, the design review board wanted us to actually site the building further off of the street. And there was a bird watcher who actually was very familiar with the kite hawk activity. And he said that place could actually disturb their flight patterns. And so we moved the building back to our original proposed position in order to accommodate the white-tailed hawk. This staircase over here is the one I mentioned earlier where the imam can come from his residence and come up that staircase. Also, men can join the prayer hall just by coming up that stair. Our budget was modest, and so the elements that we used here were very simple materials, and relatively simple finishes. And the idea was to keep it on budget, but get the space that we actually needed. During the approval process, we actually had this a little bit bigger, but when the construction estimates came back, we scaled down the prayer hall slightly. We can actually accommodate approximately 100 people on this second level. On Fridays, it's an obligation for all Muslim men to pray together. And the beginning of the Santa Barbara Islamic Society in 1976, they began to rent the Goleta Valley Community Center on Hollister Avenue. And we were a renter of that space every Friday for 35 years until this center was actually built. Is that actually almost 45 years. They were sad to see us go. We were their longest staying tenant, and we enjoyed our time there, but we finally had the opportunity to build a new center for ourselves. We purchased the property in 2001. Then the city of Goleta was formed, and they had a moratorium in 2006. Then we submitted in 2007. And then over the course of discovering the willows on site and the white-tailed kite, and just going through the process, I think we kind of got our negative declaration written in 2011. Part of it was everyone as part of the building committee is a volunteer. And so we had time in between each time we submitted and met with the city and our neighbors. And then of course the city was forming new ideas and new ways to approach this project. And so it wasn't until 2011 that we actually went through our negative declaration. From that point, we were now in line to go to the city council. We went to the planning commission first, presented our plans, which was a very warm reception, and then we went to the city council, and we received our entitlement approval in 2013. Shortly thereafter, we sent the drawings out for bid. We had them drawn and went to a bid, and then we actually started construction in 2017. The construction was a 2-year duration and was completed 2019. A community center in Islam is really the place for the local community to use as a place to come together, to have classes for children, to have celebration, and to actually pray together. And so traditionally, the community centers are built in the vernacular architecture of the local place. So if it's in China, it looks like a Chinese building. If it's Muslims in Malaysia, they look like Southeast Asian buildings. If it's in Saudi Arabia, it's built for the desert and for the climate. And so here, it made sense for us to build in the Goleta tradition, which the mayor, Mayor Bennett at the time, was extremely happy to say that this is one of the first buildings that he has seen that actually matched the Goleta style that has been defined in Goleta. And he was quite happy about that. Our neighbors are the Stowe House is occupied by the Historic Society, and they were quite happy that we adopted some of the architecture of the styles of buildings that they have on site, the barns that are there, as well as the wood detailing and siding of the Stowe House itself. And then in Goleta, the design review board likes to use a mix of different materials, board and bat and plaster. And so we took some Moorish elements that are more Santa Barbara, Southern California, the red tile roof, the board and bat siding, the thicker walls. As you can see on the interior, it's more Moorish than the exterior. And so it kind of blends into the rural environment of Goleta on the outside. And then on the inside, it has more of a Moorish style. And of course, the design review board picked up on the idea that it's really an adaptation or an adaptive reuse of the existing rural buildings on site into an Islamic center for our use. As a design process, we started from scratch in that I designed an option that was more modern, and it used the 5 pillars of faith. I used an option that was more Moorish, and it had domes and columns and what you would traditionally think of as Islamic architecture, more from the Middle East type of architecture. And then I also presented a rural theme. And after going to the design review board and working with our building committee, the rural theme seemed to fit into the concept of what was most appropriate here. Our idea isn't to be a foreign element kind of on this very prestigious site or very natural site. Our goal was to fit into the environment and be part of the community. So I think that's the most important thing for us, was to be part of the community. and then meld our faith and our tradition with design forms and ideas that aren't foreign to all of the local community that's part of our faith, who have come from all over the world. We have families that are from North Africa, families from Southeast Asia, Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, and then families that have been here in Southern California for hundreds of years. And so we used elements from all of those traditions and brought them together into something that we feel is a simple form, something that was modest, but something that we can enjoy, and as you can see from the environment here, enjoy in a very beautiful natural site. We also like the fact that all of the water that we use goes back to the trees, and it helps the trees grow. And then any water that lands on the site actually stays on the site through the parking, the Diamandia parking that we use, and the very little impervious area that we have for the fire trucks. We have gravel there, so it's soft, and it's, again, in a rural kind of environment that fits our natural landscape. Thank you, everyone, for joining me on the architectural tour of the Islamic Center. I'm available to answer any questions. And just to let everyone know that virtually, we're walking through the center today. We had hoped that we could invite you to come to the center in person. That may be something that you have to do in the future. And of course, the center is open to everyone. And just let us know when you'd like to come, and we can give you a personal tour. Thank you so much.
What an incredible space. I'm really grateful I got to visit with Jose doing the 3D scan, and Ken a week or two ago, and it was my first time in it, and I was floored by the level of detail and light and just openness. It feels so welcoming. So really incredible work, Ken. Definitely encourage everyone to go check it out. We had a few questions come in while the presentation was going. One specifically about all that beautiful tile work in the prayer hall, and if there's anything in particular featured on it that you could call out.
Well, along the top of the prayer hall itself is a Quranic verse called Al-Rahman, and it's the entire verse, and it's actually read from the left to the right. And those tiles were they were made in Pakistan, and then it was a late feature that was added, but somehow we got it to all fit within the space that we had. And yeah, it's a beautiful blue accent tile work that went across the top.
Yeah, and that's like the blue line that you can see kind of following the whole way. That's the text.
Correct. And then the round discs are the symbol for Allah and Muhammad on either side of the minbar. And you can see during the prayer, the leader of the prayer, the imam, is kind of in that mirador that we've created on the end. So it's a little bump out in the end of the building that is a niche for him to actually stand in front of the rest of the community. One thing I failed to mention is the community has traditionally been 35 families. Some families come and then others leave and others come again. And so over the course of the since 1976, it's been about 35 core families that have been part of the center. And then of course we have students from UCSB every year, sometimes 40 or 50 students from there, City College, EHS downtown join us on Friday. So typically on a Friday, there's usually 70 men that come and pray, and maybe 10 or 20 women are there.
Yeah, when I visited and you showed me the Amman residence, it was just really cool to see how welcoming it is. It sounds like there's a big group of people that, you know, cycle through to visit and share culture and just visit our community.
Yeah, you can see how we had the little key set up. So if anyone is traveling through, they can just call or email the center, and then we give them the combination and they can pull the key out and use the center. The imam's residence originally was a little bit larger. It was a 3-bedroom apartment. But it became apparent budget-wise and just from the imam we had at the time that maybe it would be better suited for traveling visitors. And so anytime there's someone traveling up or down the coast from Malaysia or from different parts of the world, or they end up staying in our place for a few days. And then during Ramadan, the scholars that come and help us, they stay there also for that month of Ramadan.
So cool. That's really the testament to welcoming. Someone just asked if there's any considerations for, any of the new Afghan families or anything, if that would be somehow like a place to just welcome, new people into our community.
Sure. I mean, anyone is welcome to join. I know when my wife and I first came back here from Malaysia after being there for 10 years, we thought, gee, we're probably the only Muslims in town. Little did we know that there's been this community, and so sure, anyone who, we have a website that you can go to, just let us know, and then we have kind of a little welcoming committee. And as I say, in Santa Barbara, we have quite a community that comes from all different parts of the world, especially with the students. And so we're used to people joining in all the time.
Love it. Love it. We need more of that in the world. I know water penetration in the ground, big topic lately with groundwater and stuff. So someone mentioned they love the permeable landscape and the parking and the water-wise landscape. Can you tell us just a little bit more about how that design process came about?
Yeah, what we have is our parking lot really is used for 2 hours on Friday, and that's most of the parking spaces are 2 hours on Friday, about an hour and a half during Friday prayers. The rest of the time, there's just people who come and pray during the day. So we may use 4, 5, 6 parking stalls. So if you look at our site plan, you can see that those 4 or 5 stalls have the gravel there. And then of course, where the fire truck has to go, that's gravel also. And then the rest of the spaces that we've planted the Diamandia on really only are per week. So we wanted to make sure that that remained a green feature, and we didn't make a sea of asphalt paving, which is kind of typical of a lot of these church sites and religious sites, because you just need it for that one short duration. So we worked hard to make sure that we made the site as green as we could.
I especially love the integration with the kite and working with a local bird watcher and changing the location based on some flying patterns. I think that's that just goes into the thoughtful intention of the design. Yeah,
the most important aspect of that is one Friday prayer I was there, and I didn't get a chance to capture it on film, but there was the 2 kite hawks were together, and they were exchanging prey while we were actually praying. And it was really, something to be part of that process. Of course, during the, while we were designing it, as you saw, we moved it to every corner of the site. It was just another round of, finding a new place and finding a new solution. But we're quite happy that we discovered that during the planning process, and that person actually came forward and talked to us about it. We had a lot of people get engaged, especially at the public level during the design review process. And the design review board, Scott Branch and Carl Schneider, were very helpful, and Tom. And our planners at the city were very helpful. And we enjoyed the process. And I think because of it, we really came up with something special for us and something that really works well for the community.
I put the link to the website for anyone who wants to check it out more and share it with anyone who might be visiting. And we have about 5 or 10 more minutes if anyone has any other thoughts or questions while we got Ken on.
And I think you mentioned using recyclable materials in construction, correct?
No, I didn't mention recyclable materials. Let's see. I don't think I can't think of any off the top of my head. We used scrap materials, things that we had from other projects or things that we had kind of collected over time. We still have a fountain to put in, which will be with some of the scrap tile that we have left over for some jobs. I know the tile on our borders for our flooring were all kind of leftover scraps, and the marble that we used. We didn't have a big budget, so of course, we were creative in finding things. We didn't put any steel in the building whatsoever. I think we have a couple of steel columns, but for the most part, it's all built out of wood. The volume space is just trusses, and the concrete has fly ash in it, of course. But we tried to keep it as simple and as economical as we could construction wise.
Did that make it easier or harder with keeping it with the Galita style?
Oh, it was fine. As we made our way through, you can see the wood behind me has a little bit of a patina on it. We wanted the building to look like it had been there for a while. And so, the plaster has integral color that we really spent a good amount of time to make sure that was a nice soft color. And then the woodwork has kind of, if you add concrete or cement as you're putting the stain on, it kind of gives it that aged look to it. And so we tried to keep the building as low and as integrated into the site and as we could, because as you can see, we're right at the front property line there. So we have lower eaves. I think up at the prayer hall, the eave height is maybe 7 feet or 6.5 feet. So we just tried to keep everything as low as possible. And obviously we could have made a much taller building, and we could have filled out the site much greater. And so we just wanted to be economical and conserve as much space as we could and make the building comfortable and multifunctional, yet serve all of our needs that we needed.
We had one more question come in. What does the Qibla direction mean?
It's facing Mecca. And so you need to face Mecca, and so every place in the world, it's in a different direction. So of course, the north-south grid of North America doesn't necessarily face Mecca exactly. And so it's about 22 degrees off of north. And so we needed to rotate our center 22.5 degrees. Of course, an octagon is divided up, and each face is 22.5 degrees from the next. And so that kind of generated the form. There happened to be one of the first schools in Montecito that had an octagon shape as a school. And so we thought, as a place of learning, and it was good form to adopt for us. And it actually got us oriented towards Qibla without disrupting the grid of North America, as intrusive as that can be sometimes.
Anyone else? Any thoughts while we got Ken on? Great. Well, hey, Ken, thanks so much for being part of this tour. It's such a treat to get to see up close to this. And I know everyone here was really excited to get to actually get a glimpse inside. And I'd like to come encourage everyone to come visit sometime.
Yeah, it'd be our pleasure. Thank you all.
Right. Well, thank you, everyone. Let me share my screen. We are coming here now to the end of our day. So again, let me just say thank you immensely to the entire team of architects and all the effort that you put into making this virtual tour happen. If we didn't do it virtually, it wouldn't have happened this year. And for all your time and effort, we couldn't be more thankful. And of course, our incredibly generous sponsors and property owners and site sponsors that made this come together. Please take a look here. We got really great group of community members helping to make this happen. So we really thank everyone that sponsored this. And specifically to our architect tour committee. We couldn't have done this without you. Karen Feeney, Cass Insberg, Eric Shawla, Ashley Taylor, Paul Belmont, Jasper Jacobs, Jolie Waugh, Patty Driscoll, Ellen Bilston, Jose Martinez, Matt Boussolet, Tara Rizzi, Ken Minnow, Steve Aldana, Elena Fraser, Julie Langley, Mark Whitman, Mari Warner, and our fearless president, Ty. So again, thank you, committee. It couldn't have come together without you. I'd like to finish off today with just a little bit of a housekeeping on some upcoming events with the AIA. 3C Ren had some really good programs on selling the value of high performance, not to be missed. And then AIA is doing some great promotion of mayoral candidates, so and city council. So really, helping be an integral part of our government and help us to have the best leaders possible. There's architectural residential curtain walls put on by Lowen. And then actually, there's the Green Building Speaker Series put on by the Central Coast Green Building Council, and yours truly, Ken Minot, will be giving a talk on the design and approval process of this Santa Barbara Islamic Center. So a little bit more in-depth look at the actual permit and design process. And then some updates from building officials. So really, we do ask that you all come and look at the website, send info@aiasb.com to get on the mailing list. And I'd like to just, call to mind that 2 of our project architects are on the Central Coast Green Building Council, Ken Minot and Mark Whitman. So taking their expertise and helping this incredible nonprofit to really help educate and promote sustainable design and construction in our community. And then we also have 2 project architects, Cass and Ellen, who are on the AIA Sustainability Committee. So, 2 more examples of really going above and beyond and putting your money where your mouth is and actually being a mover in the sustainable built environment. So really couldn't be more appreciative. If you'd like to get more involved in sustainability, we do have, as part of the Green Building mentorship program through the Central Coast Green Building Council. So if you'd like to be a mentor or mentee, please come check that out. And again, please share this with your friends and family. This link will be live to purchase tickets for another month to watch the tour after the fact. So we really do ask that you share this and talk about it amongst the town and just share what your thoughts were with it. And we couldn't be more appreciative. So again, to our architects, thank you for this thoughtful design, really showing us the impact that design has on the functionality of a structure. I was really loving Winston Churchill's quote that Mark shared about how we shape our buildings and afterwards our buildings shape us. So I really love being part of this intentional conversation about how we can better our community. So again, last but not least, thank you all of you for spending your Saturday with us, for supporting the AIA's mission, and we really couldn't be more appreciative. So thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.